Hello, my name is Mary Phillips and I am the Director of Student Services at ESU6. The ESU plays a lead role in supporting families of children birth through 3, supervising the service coordination program, and partnering with each of the school districts in service provision. This year, the ESU was selected for file review by the Nebraska Department of Special Education Part C and the Department of Health and Human Services. 14 student files were randomly selected for monitor to determine if our ESU met all the requirements of the Individuals with Disability Act Part C and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The result was that 19 errors were identified, and the ESU is required to provide training for each early intervention team in the deficit areas as part of a corrective action plan. This training is required for all early childhood providers, including early childhood teachers, SLPs, OTs, PTs, vision and hearing, and other related services staff who support families and children birth to age 3 in the ESU6 area. Please sign the meeting attendance form as evidence that you have participated in this training. The findings of the file review. The file review was conducted on September 20th, 2016. 14 files were reviewed, as I said, and there were 19 infractions in 7 of the 14 files. In order to fully comply with the regulatory program, all findings must be at 100%. So they must be corrected as soon as possible, and in no case within 1 year of when we had our audit. In order to demonstrate correction of the compliance, our PRT program had to submit a corrective action plan, which stated that all early childhood providers would receive training in the areas of noncompliance. So therefore, all districts within ESU6 must be 100% compliant on all the findings, even if only a few of the files were found to be non-compliant. Other direction, the goal of our training. Well, the goal of our training, of course, is to meet the regulatory requirements for the Early Development Network and Department of Ed Part C services. And we know we will have met that goal when we decrease our noncompliance from 19 findings to 0 findings, and during our follow-up review, which will be held in the fall of 2017. We will have another review next fall, where all the files that were found in noncompliance will be checked for correctness, as well as additional files will be reviewed to make sure that our area is 100% compliant. The timeline, of course, is this. In February, our corrective action plan was submitted to NDE and DHHS. It was approved last Friday, and we were told to proceed with the PowerPoint. So this PowerPoint is being created, and in March and April, districts and ESU6 early intervention teams will watch it and receive the training. In May, I will have to turn in all of the signature sheets to show that we provided the training as evidence. And then next November, new files will be reviewed to ensure 100% compliance was met. So let's go through the findings so that everyone understands what we are correcting. The first finding has to do with the evaluation team for service coordination and early intervention. And the finding was that we need to conduct a family assessment in the native language of the family using a tool that identifies the family's daily routines, activities, and options for the family. The tool that we use is the routines-based assessment. This is the tool that the Department of Ed has found to be research-based and the one they support staff development for using our discretionary grants. ESU6 has hosted a boot camp, and we continue to send staff to regional boot camps as staff are identified needing the training. We have coaches within our ESU6 area that support staff with the RBI, or routines-based assessment. So the action for that finding is, of course, we will be conducting an RBI prior to all initial IFSPs. And then we will conduct an RBI annually if circumstances change. An example of a circumstance change could be that a child moved into our area from a foster home, or they moved from one home to another home. Any change that would impact their daily routines would be a reason for another full-blown RBI at the time of the annual IFSP. Also, we will complete a SAFER or a SURE prior to a periodic IFSP. These are just shortened versions of the full-blown RBI, and they're found in your boot camp material. In the rare event a parent chooses not to participate in the RBI, we would document that on the SRS notes page and on an IFSP parent concerns page, and the service coordinator will document it in the Connect narrative. The second finding had to do with identification and eligibility for services. And basically, we have 45 days from referral to the IFSP to complete all parts of the evaluation process, including the MDT evaluation and assessment and the IFSP. We have to follow all of the Rule 52 regulations in completing the evaluation in order to determine eligibility. So the action is that the MDT report will reflect evaluation in all 5 domains. If there are no concerns in any single domain, document the child's present skills in that domain. The tip here is to click the box for Part C services that opens the 5 domains on the MDT for Part C in the SRS system. This is a screenshot to show you which box you would click to open. This is the box you click, and once you click that box, it opens into the 5 developmental domains, which are cognitive, fine and gross motor, language, social and emotional, and self-help skills. The third finding had to do with the MDT evaluation and IFSP completed within the 45 calendar days, and to be documenting if we have delays. So to avoid district-driven delays, you should document your attempt to schedule the evaluation and RBI within the first 20 days after the referral, and then the family-driven delays should be well documented in service coordination narratives and on a notes page by the SRS. As I said, we only have those 45 days from referrals to evaluation, and we have to have everything completed in that time frame. The best practice, of course, is to try to schedule the first 20 days. Family-driven delays are out of our control, but if we don't start to contact the family until the 30th or 35th day, and the family is unavailable for any reason, it's hard for us to claim family-driven when we were so late in the process initiating contact. It also rushes us to complete the RBI and IFSP prior to that 45th day. The fourth finding has to do with the MDT evaluation. An evaluation has to be conducted using not a single procedure as the sole criteria in determining the child's eligibility. So there are other things we take into account, such as the child's history, including an interview with the parent, looking at the child's level of functioning in each of those developmental areas, and gathering information from other sources, from family members, other caregivers, medical providers, social workers, other educators, so that we understand the full scope of the child's unique strengths and needs, and we're reviewing medical, educational, and other records. Once eligibility is established, we do not need to reestablish when a child moves from one district within Nebraska to another. So of course the action is if a child transfers within the state, the districts would not need to reestablish eligibility. Parents do not have to sign another MDT signature page, and we do not have another MDT report created. Because once the child is determined eligible by a Nebraska district, they're eligible wherever the family moves within Nebraska. Again, we would want to show evaluation in all 5 domains, and we would want to be sure to list the procedures used with more than one discipline and all the sources where the information was gathered. Findings 5, 6, and 7 all have to do with the MDT evaluation. The team has to prepare a written report, the MDT report, with the results of the evaluation and the child assessment, the RBI. That report includes whether the child qualifies as a child with a disability based on criteria in Rule 52 and the basis for that determination. So our action is that we'll complete the MDT report stating specifically that the child is eligible as a child with a disability based on the criteria contained in Rule 52. versus Rule 51, which is used for ages 3 to 21. Use that verification statement, the basis for making the determination per Rule 52. And the best practice is put that statement in the first paragraph on page 3 of the MDT. Here are some examples. On page 1, it's a box that you check that the SRS generates, and it says that we are meeting criteria on either Rule 51 or 52. Click that box. The second example is on page 3, and this is a narrative. In the verification statement, you would say, the MDT determined that the child qualifies for special ed services as a child with whatever the disability area is, and then continue on with your findings. The 8th finding has to do with the MDT evaluation as well. This one may seem redundant, but it is a specific area where we were found out of compliance. The child's unique strengths and needs should be reported for each developmental area, as I mentioned earlier. And the action is that we would click the box that opens the 5 domains for Part C services and fill something in each of the domains. Again, here's the screenshot that shows you what box you're clicking and the 5 domains. The ninth finding has to do with the MDT evaluation, that you list all the team members, including the parent, and individuals representing 2 or more separate disciplines. Again, we were found out of compliance when only one discipline and the service coordinator conducted the evaluation. We need to always have at least 2 disciplines represented. So the action is that the evaluation will be conducted with at least 2 disciplines, plus service coordination. For example, a psychologist and an SLP and an early childhood special ed teacher, or the early childhood special ed teacher and an OT or a PT. You get the idea. The 10th finding has to do with the MDT evaluation, where each team member would certify in writing if their report reflects his or her conclusion. And if it does not reflect their conclusion, then they write a separate statement giving their feelings on that. The conclusion is caught on the MDT signature page. So the action would be you would sign the MDT meeting page and indicate yes or no agreement. The exception to this is that service coordinators at MDTs sign in attendance but not in agreement. The 11th finding has to do with the MDT evaluation, that the report is given to the parent at no cost. So on the SRS, on page 4 of the MDT, there is this line that indicates the date the MDT was sent to the parent. This spot was left blank on the file that was pulled for review. Be sure to go in and fill in right here who sent it on what date. Number 12 has to do with the IFSP. It's a statement of the infant or toddler's present levels in each of those 5 domains that we identified earlier in the MDT. So vision, hearing, health status, cognitive, communication, social and emotional, and adaptive development. The action is you will present how the child is in each of those 5 domains on the IFSP. The 13th finding also was with the IFSP, that with the concurrence of the family, we include a statement of the family's resources, priorities, and concerns related to enhancing the development of their child, as identified through the, quote, family assessment. This is the routine-based interview. So the action is that the IFSP outcomes need to reflect families' needs by using that assessment, prioritized needs. Those priority needs are identified in the routines-based interview. And be sure to capture who is responsible for meeting each outcome in the what will be done by whom area of the IFSP. We also will write functional child and family outcomes. The training conducted at the ESU6 early intervention team meeting in February and at the boot camps is available to all early intervention teams at this link below. So a statement of the measurable results or outcomes expected to be achieved by the infant or toddler and the family, including the criteria, procedure, and timelines used to determine progress, was the 14th finding. So our action is that we'll write those outcomes in a functional, measurable way, and that the outcomes will be developmentally appropriate. For example, you can't say a child will use true words or a child will sit quietly at story time. You would say, we know when a child or family has achieved the outcome by something they are doing within their daily routine. And a developmentally appropriate outcome would be something that does not have medical or discipline-specific language in it. The 15th finding has to do with early intervention services to the extent practical that are necessary to meet the needs of that child. So the action is that the IFSP outcomes will be aligned with the family's concerns within their family routines. And if an outcome is continued from an earlier IFSP, you will list it again as an ongoing concern. The family will prioritize their concerns for outcome development. Not every single concern identified by the family needs to be written in an outcome. Only those that are prioritized. The 16th finding has to do with length, duration, frequency, intensity, and the method of delivering the services for that child. The action will be that notes on any IFSP, periodic or annual or transition, outcome must include progress information under that specific outcome. So if an outcome is discontinued, progress must be documented with the reason for the discontinuation. The 17th finding is that the projected dates for initiation must begin as soon as possible, but not later than 30 days after the parent consents to that service. So the action would be only services coordinators can start services on the day of the IFSP, unless there are some kind of notes to document otherwise. All other services would begin within 30 days of the IFSP meeting. In some cases, providers will start services right after the IFSP meeting. Remember to document that they did start those services right after the IFSP meeting in agreement with the parent. The 18th finding is the degree to which progress is measured. So the action would be that progress is listed for every outcome from the previous IFSP. Even if the outcome was discontinued, we will list progress. And in the next steps area, we'll indicate that the goal was met, discontinued, or changed based on the family assessment. And the 19th finding is that IFSP contain transition steps and services, including services for children to attend preschool under Rule 51, Part B, if those services are appropriate and available. Transition steps include confirmation that the child find information has been transmitted to the school district serving the child if parental consent was obtained. So the action would be if a transition plan is continued from one IFSP to another, from annual to periodic, updates have to be recorded on current steps and activities, even if you've been working on that transition plan for some time. Newly identified steps and activities should be recorded on the new IFSP transition page. Be sure not to cut and paste the transition plan from the previous IFSP without updating the steps or activities. And finally, I wanted to explain how we're tracking each step of the evaluation and assessment process. When a referral comes into ESU6, the child's name is entered in this spreadsheet. The names are removed for this slide. We then track each referral to see when the intake was completed, when the evaluation and assessments were completed, and when the MDT and IFSP meetings were held. We look at how many days between the evaluation, the assessment and RBI, the MDT and IFSPs, and reporting this to the planning region team at each of our meetings. It will be reported to MDE as part of the planning region team grant summary after the annual meeting each year. Your assistance in timely scheduling of assessments and evaluations will help us meet our 100% required compliance that each child receive a timely, comprehensive MDT evaluation, and if eligible, an assessment of their strengths and needs of the infant, toddler, and family, and the identification of services. So, this concludes the training. Please take a minute and write down 3 things that you've learned today. Then think about 2 or more things that you will do differently and 1 thing you could start right away. We are only as strong as our weakest link in the provision of birth to 3 services for children in the ESU6 area. It really does take all of us doing the right thing to support our families and meet our cap. So thank you very much for your time. Don't forget to sign the attendance form and to send that form to me. And as always, my phone number is listed because I welcome your phone calls and your questions. Please do not hesitate to contact me if I can assist you in any way. Thank you.